We are a group of volunteers. We stop at nothing to aid Ukraine. Follow our journey as we deliver our efforts to the Ukrainian people.
Here we go. This is about $700 or $800 worth of food going to Kharkiv. Along the drive to Kharkiv, we received a phone call to instead support a small rural village just outside of Kharkiv that had been recently liberated. Until about a week ago, it had been the site of some extremely intense fighting as the Russians were trying to push into the region to take over the land for their own uses. This small village of about 30 to 40,000 people has not seen any foreign aid since the beginning of the war. We will be the absolute first to reach this village to provide any sort of international aid. So we just dropped off these supplies, that 2,000 pounds of food, to this town called Zolochiv that's outside of Kharkiv. And I found it fascinating because we're inside the magazine at the moment, and I'll show you guys around here in a second, but just I wanted to put something into perspective for you. Not too long ago, the population of my hometown of Oregon City was around 30 to 40,000 people. Many people have evacuated this town of Zolochiv, but the remaining population is still between 30 and 40,000, plus whatever military members have come as well. So to put that into perspective, I want you to think about a town, a similar town of about 30 to 40,000 people. And I want you to ask yourself whether you think this is enough to support and sustain a town of 30,000 people. Everything over there is clothes. So literally I'm standing in the center of the entire food supply for this town of 30 to 40,000 people. The entire supply. What's more fascinating and a little bit humbling on top of that is that I was just told by the mayor and the fire chief that Andriy and I are the very first international aid that has come to this town. The first. And in fact, when we were out around the town today seeing some destroyed structures, one that was still actually smoldering that had been hit recently, I think as recently as yesterday, we passed by a building that was literally the first building in Ukraine to be hit by Russian artillery in the beginning of the war. The first building. So the war literally started in this town, and we are the very first international aid effort that has come to this town. Every other bit of aid that's come from here has been from the mayor calling different cities asking for support in Ukraine. So what we are doing here, this is proof of concept of the fact that what me and my colleagues out here are putting together is so essential. So thank you for your support. After dropping off our payload, we sat and had coffee and fresh bread with the mayor and the fire chief of the city. And they detailed to us some of the needs of the people and of the town itself, as well as some of the recent acts of destruction by Russian bombardment. The fire chief and the mayor offered to take us out to the site of some of the recent acts of terrorism by the Russians. And earlier, we saw a house that was completely destroyed by an area bomb. There are no military targets out here whatsoever. It's all civilian, rural farmers, as you can see around me. I wouldn't even be allowed to film this right now if there were military targets here. They're destroying infrastructure in terms of water pumps and which we saw earlier for a school, and the entire city block in that area was completely destroyed by artillery fire. They're destroying houses and they're destroying farm infrastructure. This is total war. As you can see, my friend down there, you could probably fit two of her on top of each other in that hole. One bomb. No military targets. We were invited into the home of a rural Ukrainian family just next door, literally feet that direction. Their neighbor's house took a direct hit from incoming enemy fire. And once again, to iterate, there's no military targets here. This is all civilians in a rural area, not even really any infrastructure. It's just rural homes. And they've been shelled mercilessly almost daily now. We're about 15 kilometers from the front line, and this area was actually occupied by Russians until about a week ago. These people invited us into our home to show us, after their neighbor's house was vaporized, feet that direction, bits of artillery, or bits of shrapnel from the ordnance came through that wall into their home. So I want to put this into perspective for all of you out there. This house was hit 4 days ago. 2 people in the family were killed. The reality of the humanity of it can be seen in the rubble. You see people's shoes, items from the kitchen, children's toys. Just down the street where we came from, there was a house that had been bombed so recently that it was still on fire, actually still smoking. Other than Irpin and Bucha, this is probably the second or third most destroyed part of the country that I've been to. This town is being mercilessly attacked by the Russians at the moment. They were occupying it up until about a week ago. This is somebody's house. Was. One man was killed when artillery fire fell on this house for no other reason than to cause terror and destruction. Incoming artillery rounds from Russian guns started pounding the field next door to us. The sound was absolutely unmistakable. We rushed downstairs into one example of a bomb shelter that had been converted from a root cellar. There we sat in the cold and damp for the next few minutes until we were sure that the coast was clear. So, once again, 4 weeks ago I never planned to go to Ukraine. I planned to stay in, I guess 6 weeks ago now, planned to be in Poland. And this is the second time that I've been within close enough range of artillery fire to feel the ground shake when that fucking round hit. So this week's mission presented us with some of the most difficult challenges that we've faced yet while in country. Vehicle issues causing us to be broken down on the side of the road at night in a very dangerous part of the country. Constantly shifting timelines cause us to need to be very vigilant and patient and be able to pivot at a moment's notice. We will be returning to this town, this time bringing with us 5 to 7 tons of fresh food products, non-perishables, and other humanitarian aid to help aid in the rebuilding of this town.